Alrighty, this is a YouTube video. Since I attempt to have alternating subjects, at least alternating topics, on this channel. I try to record a video every day, and I want these videos to be on one day having. I'd like to talk about topics related to technology, things to do with IT, technologies that I've used in my day-to-day job, up-and-coming technologies, legacy technologies, essentially things to do with software development, computer science, and science more generally. And on the other days, I want to talk about more general tips. I want to talk about things that have worked for me in my life, and that's also very general, but it's nice to share these things, if not to benefit the listener, at least it's helpful to myself to kind of work things through verbally. I believe it kind of gives a different perspective compared to writing. You write something down, it gives you a chance to kind of go through it, reflect on that, kind of tear it apart a bit in your head. But it's interesting when you actually talk it out into the world. It's a different form of analysis again. I don't know, I find like it's almost like when you say something, you can imagine someone else saying it, and you can have an opinion on that. Like, what would I think of this human had they have said that? And it's just an interesting little experiment. So that's the reason that I'm participating in this. So, since it's a technology day, let's talk about technology, and let's talk about design patterns. I bought this beautiful book called Design Patterns, which I can't remember the author's name, and I told myself that I wanted to start remembering the names of authors. If I can remember one name of the author, because there's 4 authors of this book. And I believe it was written back in the 80s, and it's talking about popular design patterns in software development and software architecture. And the reason for this book is so people in the industry can talk about standardized concepts for solving reoccurring problems through these software patterns, and people would know what they're talking about. So it's kind of like a standard definitions for solutions, whereby people can understand what problem you're trying to solve, because it's kind of common knowledge. So I think the intent was to have this book get into the universities, or get into the popular teaching frameworks when students are learning about software development, so everyone can kind of have like a standardized opinion on these patterns. And I've really enjoyed reading it over the years. Interestingly enough, my friend and I bought this book, namely because it was a beautiful book, and I find throughout our education in computer science, because he did computer science with me, we found that we didn't really have many of those like textbooks that some other departments, some other areas of study could kind of have as almost a medal of honor. That is to say, they would finish their degree, and then they would have these thick textbooks, which eventually they could put on the back shelf of their office to show, I've really read some things, and I've done some hard mental yakka during my degree. So that was kind of the motivation. But it was funny, because like when I first started reading the book, I didn't find it that compelling. It's not exactly a page turner, well, at least it wasn't at the time. But I'm finding it more and more now relevant, because it's interesting. Like I can understand it more now because I know more about it. But it wasn't that I kept on reading it and then I concepts in there. It's more like I learned the territory, right? It's like I learned the territory in the software world. Like I will architect something and I will solve a problem. And then when I read the book, it gives me confirmation of a map to that territory, if that makes sense. And that's been really useful because it's like a nice defined way of kind of cementing that solution to the problem that I've encountered in the real world. I would recommend this book. I don't think it's highly necessary because I think it's one of those things, and this is an opinion of mine, that the intention of the book was to share and be kind of like a required reading as a software developer. And that would be the utility of the design patterns, right? Everyone would know them, and when you would mention one, people would know what you're talking about. And for example, in like a meeting, you know, if you proposed the solution, you could reference a design pattern and everyone will know, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to use, like, for instance, the observer pattern, and we're going to set up like webhooks or listeners for something to trigger based on some other event, either like internally or externally, or external of the system, right? But if no one reads the book and you mention, oh, the observer pattern, people won't really know what you're talking about. You're better off mentioning the implementation rather than the abstraction. The abstraction being the observer pattern, and the implementation being a webhook, really. Because, you know, I mean, the observer pattern isn't exactly a webhook. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the observer pattern is related to the webhook, where the observer is whatever the webhook receiver is receiving. I believe I'm pretty sure that's right. The webhook triggers based on an event, and then that hits some kind of other, could be API. I think that's how it works. I need also some confirmation in my own knowledge of that. But that's okay. Anyway, for now, thanks for listening. That's just a small one today.